Welcome to Executive Protection Insights. I'm Liam. There's a moment in almost every operation where everything still looks fine from the outside, but inside the team, something feels off. Not wrong, not broken, just off. And if you've been doing this long enough, you learn to pay attention to that feeling, because most of the time, that's the first signal. Not a radio call, not an alert, just a quiet shift in the rhythm of the operation. Today's episode is about one of those moments. It's called the airport arrival that fell out of sync. Airports are interesting environments for executive protection. On paper, they look structured. Everything has a process. Everything has a timeline. Flights arrive, passengers deplane, vehicles stage. Movements happen in sequence. But in reality, airports are one of the most unpredictable environments you can operate in, because you're not controlling the system. You're entering it. And when you enter a system that you don't control, timing becomes everything. This scenario took place during an international arrival. The executive was flying in from overseas. Long flight, tight schedule. The plan was simple. The aircraft would land. The executive would be met at a private terminal. A vehicle would be staged. The team would move immediately. Minimal dwell time, minimal exposure, clean transition from aircraft to vehicle, from vehicle to destination. Everything built around timing. And like most plans in this field, it made sense. The advance had been completed. The team had coordinated with the FBO. They had confirmed the arrival procedures. They had identified the pickup location. They had assigned roles. Driver in position, lead agent coordinating, additional support in place. Everything aligned, at least on paper. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The flight was delayed, not significantly, about 20 minutes, which in most situations is nothing. But in executive protection, timing is not just about minutes, it's about alignment. And when timing shifts, alignment starts to move with it. At first, the delay didn't seem like a problem. The team adjusted. The driver held position. The FBO was informed. Everything was still under control, or at least it appeared to be. But what often gets overlooked is this. When a timeline shifts, not everyone adjusts at the same speed. Some people update immediately. Some people assume. Some people miss the update entirely. And that's where misalignment begins. The aircraft finally lands. Taxi time is slightly longer than expected. Again, nothing dramatic. But now you've got small delays stacking. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Each one insignificant on its own. But together, they start to move the operation away from its original timing. Inside the FBO, activity is increasing. Other flights are arriving. Passengers are moving through. Staff are juggling multiple priorities. The environment is becoming more active, more dynamic, more complex. The driver is staged, or at least, he believes he is, positioned where he was instructed to be during the advance. But here's the problem. The environment around him has changed. Another vehicle has taken part of the space. Traffic flow has shifted slightly. What was a clear staging area earlier is now less defined. Still functional, but not ideal. Inside the terminal, the team is waiting, monitoring, coordinating, expecting the executive to come through at any moment. But communication starts to stretch. Not break, just stretch. The aircraft door opens. Passengers begin deplaning, but the executive is delayed slightly on board. Luggage, conversation, a small, normal delay. But again, timing shifts. Now the team is waiting longer than expected. The driver is waiting longer than expected. The environment continues to move. Now here's where the critical moment happens. The executive exits the aircraft, but the timing is no longer aligned with the original plan. The driver, expecting a quicker transition, has shifted positions slightly to adjust to traffic flow. The team inside the terminal assumes the vehicle is still exactly where it was planned. The FBO staff, managing multiple arrivals, are focused on movement, not precision. And suddenly, the synchronization is gone. Not completely, but enough. The executive enters the terminal. The team forms around them. Movement begins toward the exit. Everything looks normal, professional, controlled, but there's a gap, a small one. The vehicle is not exactly where it was supposed to be. Not far, but not in the precise position needed for a seamless transition. Now the team has to adjust. Do they pause? Do they move to the vehicle? Do they redirect? And here's where pressure builds. Because airports don't stop. People are moving, staff are moving, vehicles are moving, and standing still increases visibility. So they move. They guide the executive toward the vehicle. But now the path is not clean. There are people nearby, staff crossing, other passengers exiting. The controlled bubble they expected isn't there. They reach the vehicle, load the executive, doors close, movement begins. From the outside, everything looks fine. No incident, no disruption. But internally, the operation was out of sync. And that's the key. Nothing went wrong, but everything was slightly off. And in executive protection, slightly off is where risk starts to grow. Now let's break this down, because this scenario is more common than people think. The first issue was timing. The delay itself wasn't the problem. The problem was how the delay propagated through the operation. Not everyone adjusted the same way. Not everyone had the same understanding of the updated timeline. And that created gaps. The second issue was positioning. The driver adjusted based on what he saw, which made sense. But that adjustment wasn't fully communicated. So now you have two different expectations: where the vehicle is supposed to be and where it actually is. The third issue was communication. Not a failure, but a lack of precision. Updates were made, but not everyone processed them the same way. And in a dynamic environment, that matters. The fourth issue was environment. Airports are constantly moving systems. You are stepping into something that is already in motion. And if your timing is not aligned, you are immediately reacting instead of controlling. Now let's go deeper, because this is where experienced operators separate themselves. The real issue here was not the delay, it was the loss of synchronization. Executive protection is not just about presence, it's about timing, it's about coordination. It's about multiple elements moving together at the same moment. And when that alignment breaks, even slightly, you lose efficiency, you lose control, and you increase exposure. Another layer here is expectation. Everyone involved believed they were operating correctly. The driver thought he was in position. The team thought the vehicle was where it was planned. The FBO staff thought everything was moving normally. And that's what makes these situations difficult, because no one is obviously wrong, but the system is no longer aligned. There's also the human factor: fatigue, travel, long hours, cognitive load. When you're dealing with international arrivals, people are not operating at peak performance. Small miscommunications become more likely, small delays become more impactful, and small decisions carry more weight. Now let's talk about what this should look like. In a modern operation, this kind of drift should be visible early, not after the fact. You should know exactly where your vehicle is. Not approximately, not assumed, but precisely. You should know exactly when your executive is moving. Not estimated, but confirmed. You should have a shared operational picture where everyone sees the same thing at the same time. Because alignment is not automatic, it has to be maintained. And in dynamic environments like airports, it has to be maintained continuously. Another key factor is adaptability. Plans should not just include primary routes. They should include immediate alternatives. And those alternatives should not require discussion. They should be understood in advance. Because in moments like this, you don't have time to debate, you have time to act. And finally, awareness. Not just situational awareness, but operational awareness. Understanding how your decisions affect the entire system. Understanding how timing, positioning, and communication all connect. Because executive protection is not just about protecting a person. It's about managing a system, a moving, changing, unpredictable system. If there's one takeaway from this episode, it's this: synchronization is control. And when synchronization is lost, even slightly, control starts to fade with it. The operation may still succeed. The executive may still arrive safely. But the margin for error gets smaller. And that's not where you want to be. In the next episode, we'll look at a different scenario: A last-minute change from a protectee that forces a team to adapt instantly, and how quickly a controlled plan can turn into a reactive operation. Until then, stay sharp, stay prepared, and stay operational.